Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to Beyond the Sim. Happy Friday, everybody. I'm Shaun Cole, and I'm here with my co-host, Billy Strange. How you doing, Billy?
Good. How are you? What episode is this?
This is
18?
18, episode 18
Woohoo!
already. Can you believe it? Can you believe it?
Man,
And they just
legal.
keep getting better. I mean, it's funny how this show came together because there's so many variations. It's not like we invented anything, and there are a lot of different variations of this time, but just
Sure.
sim conversation. And for a while we were the sim tunnel because I just think back to the wind tunnel, Dave Despain, and it was like you had to be such a gearhead to watch or listen to that show because there was no fluff, right? There was no clickbait. It was just hardcore chat about racing.
Right.
And I just feel like that has always been the inspiration for me for Beyond the Sim, whatever you want to call it. And it's so cool to be able to just have an audience that, thank you all for being here, by the way, where we get to just sit and talk about sim racing. Sometimes it's the esport variation, sometimes it's modding, sometimes it's products, sometimes it's just gear stuff, like racing stuff. And anyway, I love these conversations in this show. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Billy, for being part of it.
I second all that. How about, how about that?
So yeah. Anyway, what have you been doing? You've been doing much driving this week?
I've been doing a little bit of everything. I had to make a list
I
so
should
I
have.
wouldn't forget things. So it started off the week. I pre-ordered something called a Mega SG. It's by a company called Analog, and it's really not sim racing related unless you want to talk about old school Sega
Right.
Genesis slash what is it, Mega Drive in the Europe. So I have a bunch of those games. I got that, played around like Super Monaco GP and a bunch of those. So that was fun. And then on Sunday, apparently our show went good enough that my band show went good enough that the radio station wanted to put us on the local. They have a local segment.
Uh-huh.
So they put us on the local segment, and if your song gets enough votes, they play it the next week. And if it gets enough votes, you can text in to vote for the song. If it gets enough in like a month or something like that, they'll put you in regular rotation or whatever. So they put us on. Of course, they put us last. We don't sound anything like anybody else in the whole lineup. And so I was like, okay, well, that was good. And then Tuesday, we get a notification that we won. I think it was Tuesday, and I just about fell over. So that was being completely transparent. I was totally surprised.
That is
So,
awesome.
yeah. So that's good. We got some notoriety out of that, I guess.
Uh-huh.
Then I had a couple of abandoned trials on videos this week. We talked about it briefly before the show. Sometimes I don't know if anybody else feels like this, but I just stare sometimes at the stuff that I have it's first world problems. I know that, but I stare at things to do, and I'm just like, I want to do that. I don't know if I want to do that. Yeah, I want to do that one. I don't know if I want to do that one. And then finally I like narrowed in on something, and it didn't work. So I abandoned ship on 2 videos.
Without giving away the who or the what of it, is it the content or whatever the product is, or is it the approach that becomes the obstacle? Like the angle or approach or how you want to,
I think it's a little of both. Sometimes it's the content, or sometimes I just don't feel it. You know what I mean? Sometimes you just sit down and you have it all planned out like a video you're going to do, and then you kind of get halfway through it, or you just like, oh, this is not turning out like I want it to. Or you get frustrated. And then you don't want to make one of those videos where it looks like, oh, I'm having so much fun. It's just, no, can't do that one. So I think it's a little of both. You should probably be better about. I think I've had to learn to just stop and move on to the next thing instead of trying to force something to work. So
Right.
Then I did the one thing I did for my channel was a video in Assetto Corsa. Of course, I redid the AI was with the GT World Challenge is going to be at VIR this weekend.
Right.
So I did VIR, and I've not raced that track a whole lot. I've done some laps, but I haven't raced that track a whole lot. That is it's deceptively difficult, but that track has a good flow to it. Kind of hard to pass because of how back and forth everything is. But you got some nice long straightaways. Has a little bit of a hint of Road Atlanta in there. There's like the S's and a couple of those up and down. Like it really flows with the natural landscape of the area. And I think that's why I partly like it. It doesn't feel manufactured like a lot of the, what are they called? Tilke tracks?
Right.
However you say it. So I like that. So that was fun. And then off channel stuff I just did on my own. I actually ran some more Forza Horizon 4. Did a little more of that. I did VRC Pro for whatever reason. Well, actually, I know the reason, but I decided to, that's virtual racing or VR. Yeah, VRC Pro. VR Pro. No, that's right. VRC Pro because it's virtual radio controlled.
That's what I thought you were getting at.
Yeah. So I played some of that. So a while ago, I had bought myself a fairly inexpensive radio and got there's a little USB dongle that you plug into your receiver.
Yeah, I had this.
And yeah, well, I was like, man, so my brother races for Team Associated. And this year, the on-road 10th scale nationals, I think is what it is close by. So Team Associated sent him a brand new 4-wheel drive touring car to run. He primarily runs off-road dirt, but he's running, they said, here, go run this since it's basically in our backyard.
Okay.
So I'm seeing him put it together. I'm like, that kind of looks cool. He's running the 4-wheel drive modified touring car. Oh, they're stupid fast.
Yeah.
But it's got the really low slung touring car, like a Cord, like they used to be Accords and stuff like that. They're kind of just whatever now.
Right.
But they're real smashed looking. So they kind of look like a car. So my dad and I have been looking at what my brother's doing. And we're like, that's kind of cool. So they have an F1 class, which I used to race the F1 class like when I was, I don't know, 18 or 19. Those look cool, but kind of low participation numbers. Then they have a couple different versions of the class my brother's running. And then they have a US GT class. These look so badass because they're the Cadillac, they're the Corvettes, they're the Ford GTs, Audi R8s. They look really cool. And I'm like, man, this could get really expensive really quick. It's like a grand. It's like $1,200 to get going. Because they got tire warmers and everything else. But
I'm pulling one of these up for everybody.
Yeah, I think Protoform has the bodies. They're really cool. So I got all geeked out on that. I'm like, man, I think I could put in some practice and go run and at least make, like the C main. Because they'll have hundreds of people run. But anyway, I nerded out on that, so that got me into, I think I should practice on VRC some. So I did some official races on there, and if you're not familiar with VRC, it's like an iRacing, but for RC cars. So I did that. What else did I do? Oh, tried the Race Room IDR challenge, which we'll talk about in just a little bit, but I did that. Tested out the Sweden rally stage in Dirt Rally 2.0. Did that. Very intuitive. I like the way the cars feel. So that was fun. And then I got so wound up in everything else, I needed a break. And so I went out in the shop and started cleaning up my go-kart, and started working on that. I'm like, maybe I could go run it in a couple months. So I'm all over the place this week.
Awesome. That sounds like a lot going on.
Yeah, I've had a very full week. I just went a bunch of different directions. That's the problem, I guess, with having a bunch of different interests.
That VRC, it's funny you bring that up. I ran into online, we have our online friends. I ran into a friend who I haven't seen in many, many years, Frosty St. Clair, who was like a sponsored, factory dirt driver back in the day, RCs. And I ran into him. I'm like, oh, what have you been doing? He's like, oh, I'm kind of getting back into VRC. And this is literally like within this week. So you're the second person who is playing VRC. And it made me think, I got to get a hold of those guys. I would totally go back. And, while you were telling the story, I actually brought up one of their videos from their website. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, wow, they've come a long way from when I played, like in the first year, maybe 2 years of development. Here we are 12 years later, 10 years later. And yeah, it looks amazing. I'd like to get in on.
They've really done that. It's a really small team. It's only like a couple guys, I think, but they've improved the dirt physics. Because I remember trying it before, pardon me, a few years ago. And the dirt was just kind of like, okay. To me, it feels much better now. So I was doing some 1/8 off-road buggy gas, and I did some 10 scale touring car on their indoor carpet track, and I did some 10 scale 4-wheel drive the trucks. So I don't know, it was fun. I forgot how intense I get. Like, I start bringing my left arm up that's holding the controller. I start bringing, pretty soon I'm clear up here as I'm driving, and like my arm gets all tensed and start cramping up. I need to hydrate more.
How long, what was the learning curve in terms of, I know you've done it before and you've done, real life RC stuff, but how long did it take to get competent at turning laps?
Not very long. If you've done RC stuff, it feels fairly similar. You can move yourself on the driver's stand left and right. You can actually zoom your view in or out. And I have the ultra wide, so I can see a little further.
Right.
So it's kind of cool. I don't know. It seems to run really well. The one thing I like about VRC Pro is you can download other people's replay and then race against them. I always thought that was a neat idea.
Yeah, that's something I've always loved about like Project Cars 2, where you can download the ghost of anybody on a leaderboard and run against it.
Yeah, you can download as many as you want. And in certain scenarios, you can actually make them actual AI, like collidable.
Oh, wow.
You can have a full-on race with them.
That is pretty badass.
I don't know, it was fun.
That is badass. Oh, very cool. Very cool. Mine was a lot more straightforward, but I did do quite a bit of driving this week because, I'd been sick for so long. I didn't get to do any driving. So this was the first time, like, in a long time that I was like, oh, finally I get back to being me and sim racing and driving. And so I was pretty straightforward on what I did, but I did a lot. Actually, speaking of Project Cars and leaderboard, I was like, it's about time I threw down the gauntlet and went after one of these leaderboards. So I fired, I fired up Project Cars just thinking, I'll see what the challenge is this week. But it was, and I'll go back to it, I think. There's a couple more days left on it. But it was the Caterham, which is a wicked weird car. And I'm like, I don't know if this is my debut for the hot lap.
Which Caterham is it?
The C7, I think, or the R7, I think they call it.
Is it the LMP looking car, or is it
no, it's like,
or is it the actual, like the two? They've got like a 240 and
it's like the Model T looking car almost.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, it was weird, and I didn't have anything optimized yet, so I turned a few laps at that. But from there, it was preparing for and doing the Lionheart race, IndyCar at Pocono against a very, very good grid of drivers. And it was horrendous. It was so hard and difficult and not... Oh, I want to say not fun, but I can't even accuse it of not being fun. It was fun, but it was just sickly brutal on me and embarrassing and not good.
Did you figure out why you were struggling to begin with? Or is it just kind of one of those, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes you're just out to lunch and you really don't have an idea why. And then other times you're like, oh, well, it's because I wasn't doing this.
I thought the car was really comfortable in fifth gear, and that in the draft you'd need sixth a little bit. Well, it turns out guys were dropping into fourth in the corners, and that's how they were getting that massive turn in. because they were doing some serious engine braking, making a downshift that I wasn't doing. So I found out after the race that's what was going on. John Hill had actually said guys were doing that in practice, but it didn't work out from him. So I kind of, and I'm not pointing a finger at John, but that's what he had mentioned, fourth gear, but he was staying in fifth, and John and I were actually running very similarly. So the results were the same. I wish I had picked up on that, and I wish I could go back in time, because now I can't even really test that idea, because without the full grid, it's not the same. Like, I tried to practice offline, but it didn't matter because,
you're not in the draft. You're not having to adjust your line. Yeah, that's where we talk about you can practice as much as you want. You can turn as many laps as you want. That's only going to get you so far. You've got to get into a race. You've got to put yourself in uncomfortable scenarios.
Absolutely.
To learn that next, get to that next step.
Sure. Even if you're absolutely the fastest guy, and you absolutely got the fastest qualifying, that still was sort of all alone versus going into turn one during the race where all of a sudden the guy who was second fastest has the ability to stick a nose in and make you do something different than you did at your optimal. And obviously you can't be the optimal when you're held to the inside line. It changes everything the minute you're in a crowd, even in road racing. I mean, I think in road racing it's a little less critical because the draft is significant, but not the same. I mean, in the IndyCar at Pocono, the draft was great and terrible at the same time. I mean, you lose your wing completely.
Yeah, that's tough on that track. Yeah, going in, you really have to adjust for it.
Scuderia, look at you. You are always helping out the show. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
So it was, I don't really want to dwell on this, or maybe we bring this up later as a topic, but it was really, I've done terribly in the series so far. I missed a race. I got crashed out of another race and had mediocre results in another. And it's like, I need to do well. Oh, and not to mention, this is actually being broadcast on iRacing Esports Network. So it's like, not just that I'm streaming it, but that's just to my friends and family, so to speak. But it's going out on other channels as well. And it's like, back marker Shaun, once again, didn't qualify because he was too scared. In the practice race, I actually qualified really strong. But being forced to race and be racy, I made a mistake with the arrow and crisscrossed somebody and lost my wing and slammed the wall, and running in 7th place. And it was like, I don't want to do that again. So I chickened out and didn't qualify for the race and played back marker games. And I think in the end I finished like 25th, I think, out of 40 people. So it wasn't a total loss. And I did see the checkered flag, which at the beginning of the race, that was like the one thing I'm like, in fact, I think I even titled the stream, like, I need a finish. I need to finish this race regardless of where I was. And I was it was hard though. It was like I'm streaming and I'm like miserable. I'm just like, argh.
Do you find with the field as advanced as that? You have a bunch of fast people running.
Yeah.
You find that it's probably pretty detrimental starting in the back?
Yeah, now at Pocono in the practice race, we couldn't turn 2 laps without carnage because the draft was so strong in the aero that everybody was a hero because coming down the straightaway, you just blow right by somebody. So everybody was getting really racy. So I actually was predicting mass carnage in the real event. But then everyone pulled it together, and it was like it was actually a great race that I missed out on playing back marker Shaun. Just tailing at the rear, just picking up spots as guys were DNFing, picking up spots as guys were damaging their cars. So all of a sudden I was stronger than a handful of cars as well. At the very end, I found a little bit of speed, which might have been good for 1 or 2 positions in the end. But, it was the longest race of my life.
We talked about it a couple weeks ago, I think. Do you so in that scenario, you guys do a practice race and then you guys have the actual race the following night, I think it is?
Yeah.
Do you think those guys are testing the boundaries, and that's why on the race day okay, I know what's going to happen. The practice race doesn't mean anything, so I'm just going to try a bunch of stuff and see what sticks, and
Yes.
then I bank that. And so, do you think that is the difference in what you're experiencing from running with a more not casual crowd, but maybe a crowd that isn't quite as elevated in
Sure.
competition level as this is? So these guys are finding all those little exploits and things that they can and can't do,
Right.
and then it comes race time and they're like, okay, I know exactly what I can do with this, and I'm going to plan it out.
Because I already tried that and it resulted in a huge fiery crash. Right.
Right.
You know, so
My virtual driver was on fire.
So yeah, I think that was a big part of it. Oh, John just corrected me. I was in 24th. He was in 25th.
Oh, see, you're moving up in the world.
Yeah. Next week is Detroit, Belle Isle, doubleheader.
Ooh,
Yeah. Actually, I
that ought
guess
to be
that's
fun.
this
Actually,
week.
that's really hard. I tried the IndyCar around that track. That is not easy.
Yes. So I now I kind of feel like I'm in a position now that I have to like double secret, training mode because I have to do well there, especially on a track that others will struggle. The only problem is it's such a tough track that it's hard to not find other people's trouble because you'll
Sure.
literally get
Yep.
a blocked track, nowhere to go, and your instinct is not to come to complete stop. And even if you do, you still are hoping everyone behind you has
Right.
that same instinct.
That's the tough part.
Anyway, I'm looking forward to Belle Isle. Hopefully I'll get some form of redemption and I'll have to put in a little more work. But I found it really hard to train or prepare training. I mean, it is training, right?
Well, yeah.
For Pocono, because without a crowd, it didn't matter. I could flat out all the way around. My tires would wear. I'd have to start backing out just a little bit.
Sure.
But nothing changed lap after lap. So now they do more practice races. I'm just not on top of it enough. I should be doing more of their practice races than I do.
Okay.
So to be fair, and it's a great, amazingly fast group of drivers who are very seasoned in the IndyCar as well. It's a great car that is got some interesting characteristics. All right. What else
Nice
did
way
I
of putting
do?
it.
I also last night. Okay, so normally I do a monthly patron race. So for the SImpit patron crowd, we do a monthly race, fourth Saturday of every month. And I've always played the let's keep it a secret until the race mentality of these. And I don't know if that's the best way to race, actually. It's a cool thing for a hot lapping competition.
It works really well for me, so I'm just kidding.
But I figured that this time I'd try something different. So I yesterday had a practice race where no one knew until the race started, but I sent an email out to everyone so that people would know exactly what we're going to race on Saturday. The other thing is it added the fun for me of, well, for the patron race, I always broadcast the race and call the action. For the practice race, well, I'm going to race in it.
Sure.
So in picking the combination, I did do some practice laps. So I came into the event more practiced than anybody. And anyway, I won my own race, which is sort of uncool. No.
Beating up on everybody, are you?
A little bit, but getting back to what we were talking about, I was the fastest in qualifying. I was the fastest in practice. Well, David Grunnell, who normally beats me, I have never beaten David Grunnell in my life until last night. He started on the outside and was able to fight me well enough into one that we had to go too wide. Well, that set him up for the inside on the most important next corner.
That tight turn, yeah.
And I couldn't do anything to come back on him, and so he had the lead. And it was like, what happened?
All that training I did for running by myself, it's not working.
Not working at all. And so, yeah, it was only because he blew his engine. Otherwise, I don't know if I could have passed him. I was right there, but I had no move outside of him making a huge mistake. If he didn't make a mistake, I was either going to punt him or finish clean in second. And the more we fought, the more it let David Clymer in the race. So then it was a 3-car race, and it was like, well, this is even worse. Anyway, it was a really, 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 really fun race. Had a blast. Anyway, that's all I've been doing, but plenty of driving. Tonight we have the truck race, to practice race for the truck season. I should just call it the 1.5-mile truck race season.
The 1.5 trucks.
Yeah, because it's like, that's all we're doing. 5 cookie cutters and 1 little track. But it'll be great racing. So anyway, enough of that. I've talked enough.
Huh?
Excuse
All right,
me. See?
Yep. Thanks for everybody hanging out in the chat. If you have anything you want us to either question or a comment, make sure you hit at me or at Shaun, so at Billy Strange Racing, or at the SImpit, so we can it'll highlight it for us so we can see it. But on to the news.
On to the news. All right. This is kind of cool. A little bit of details of F1 2019. We know about it. It's soon. When's it coming out? Very soon. Very soon. This is, and I can't remember. Is this what they're already doing on the Esports? Is already playing this, or are they still using 18?
I believe they're using 18.
Yeah, they're.
I don't think they're using 19 yet.
But anyway, we got some news of things to come in the game, such as, and I think we mentioned this at some other point, but they had like those historic moments that you'd relive. So apparently you have got some Senna and Prost rivalries going on within the game. And in addition to that, they're going to have Formula 2 as well as part of the content. So they're packing a little more content, it seems, into this version of the title.
Yeah, hopefully that F2 thing will be part of the career.
Yeah, wouldn't that be cool?
That'll always make a nice, you start in F2, and depending on how well you do in F2 determines what team you go with to start out with in F1.
Or whether you don't get picked and you have to do a second season of F2 even. My brother's been playing a lot of, the latest, greatest of the soccer titles, and he's playing in the Premier League. And it's like he started out as like a third-tier team, won that championship, their team went up, and he never took any of the drafts because he was trying to get drafted by bigger teams as a player. But he's like, no, I'm sticking my team. Anyway, he took his little team up to the Premier League, and it's like you where they're playing, in giant stadiums. And then when they'd play his team, it would be in their little dipshit stadium because they were
nice.
They never got an upgraded stadium. But anyway, getting back to this, it would be cool to see that in the season mode. And I always love the ideas of historic challenges, whether it be the rivalry aspect like here. And I think they're talking about multiple rivalries. That's not the only one, but I think like they even here, I'm reading here, players compete alongside George Russell, Lando Norris, and Alexander Albon before progressing into the F1 season with their respective teams. So it's like they've created like a fantasy F2, season, it seems, which that would be great. That'd be a lot of fun. And
yeah,
that's one thing I'm always going to say about, I'll just say the more arcadey titles, that's what you get, though. You get the built-in add-on fun. You talked about playing Forza Horizon 4 again. I'm assuming it's some of that is the draw as much as is the driving experience.
Yeah, that was part of my, not problem, but just thing this week, because I just don't feel like pick car, turn laps, drive race, done. Because I didn't even mention, I played, on top of that, I played World War Z, and I just started Days Gone last night. That's my outside of sim racing and racing game stuff. So I was all over the map this week, and I think part of it was this week I just didn't feel like doing the same pick car, pick course, track, or whatever, and go run. It just didn't really interest me a whole lot. I needed something a little more. So that's where something like Forza Horizon 4, because you can do the, what is it called? The barn finds,
right.
And it's got several different things. Yeah, I can sit there and for 5 or 10 minutes, I can goof around with upgrading or changing things out on a car. Those things I like those things. I miss having a goal. Sometimes winning is not enough.
Are you,
Sometimes I need to have a different goal than that.
are you ever baited by the Drivatar characters? Like,
In what way? What do you mean?
well, aren't half the Drivatars that you see like the people on your rivals list?
Yes.
So
Um,
does that ever,
it used to be cool, but the drivatars are garbage.
right?
Even when you turn the aggression, it has like 2 settings for aggression. They're not great. I actually preferred it when they did other AI, and uh, if you've, I get the rub with AI. They're not as predictable, or they're too predictable. But I would say that I have equally terrible races with humans as AI. I
That's
mean,
fair.
and I don't. So for me, I prefer that the AIs drive more predictable, because when I race in real life, 9 times out of 10, not always, I know you always have the outlier, but I know usually where to go. Or if they're erratic, I know in what manner they're being erratic. And so when I did the video with the VIR and I redid the AI, I let people know that for whatever reason on this track, and I think it's the flow and configuration of the track, the AI, sorry, we're going off on a tangent here, but the AI defends really hard. Like if you get underneath them going into the turn, if you don't completely clear them, they will hold that position. And you guys, if you don't give them enough room, you're going to have contact.
Right.
So they defend really hard on that track. So, but that's no different to me than racing against somebody that actually does that. And that's predictable, because however unpredictable we say humans are, they actually usually, when there's a consequence, that's the key. There's a consequence. They are predictable.
Right.
It's not normal. Not saying it doesn't happen, but it's, in my experience, racing cars in the real world, it is not normal to totally not have a clue what the guy's going to be doing.
Right.
Because you're running against people that you know, or even if you're running against people you don't know, you size them up. You can kind of tell what they're going to do unless you're totally not paying attention.
Right.
So in that regard, saying AI is predictable, well, okay, sure. But I don't want somebody putting me in the fence for no reason, which for me seems to happen quite frequently in
online
I'm not talking about leagues. Leagues kind of fall in that same category because people become predictable in leagues.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the appeal of running a league. You know the people you're running with, so it becomes, their driving style. It's more predictable. Whereas you're in a more open lobby, you just like, I don't know what this person's going to do. So, and that for me isn't what I'm used to in the real world. It's just not normal.
No,
so,
and that's where you have a real advantage in like a league environment of any kind, because you will have, and the people around you will have a reputation in that league, and there are guys who maybe you've had mix-ins with that mean that you might lift and let them by, sometimes for the name of safety, sometimes just because you're doing somebody's always been good to you on the track, a solid, you're like, and then other times you might do the opposite. You might be like, I'm not doing anything to let that guy by because last time, blah, 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 but those consequences carry with you, as your reputation in a league environment. And I'm not going to say it necessarily keeps things clean, but it does affect and change things versus the unknown.
Well, and I give the example of, I know how you race, that we've raced together enough with particular cars.
Right.
And so like in the trucks, I know we can race door to door, whether it's a road course or an oval, and we can make mistakes, and I'm not saying mistakes don't happen, but I know that we're going to be okay.
Right.
Like we can race door to door. We're going to be okay. Now, maybe some other cars, we give ourselves a little more breathing room because
Right.
maybe we're not as experienced with those. So we could say like the modifieds, we tend to give each other a little more breathing room. But I guess that's what I'm getting at is we can knock AI for being predictable, but really you're predictable. I know what you're going to do. I know if there's certain other drivers that I race against, if I pressure them hard enough, they're going to make a mistake.
Right.
I know I can watch the person in front of me and they're taking a completely different line. I know that's going to happen. So to me, really is no different. I think the difference becomes in the speed. And so I believe that really the AI's downfall for a lot of people is they aren't quick enough. They do odd things, but if you
Right.
get good AI, that becomes less and less the case.
Right.
So anyway.
Right. Edgar says official iRaces equal gamble, league races equal kind of know the drivers. And then he said, but last night he got punted by the AI at Road America in the Formula Juniors.
Well, there you go. There's your unpredictability.
Devin Booth says in the online lobbies, it's basically following people for the first few laps, learning what they're going to be like. I think that's kind of, you got to like, I don't know you. I'm not sure if I can put a nose in or go side by side, and you have to spend a little extra time judging some of those people for sure.
Yeah.
If you want to finish races.
I've done that in big, sprint car races where I'm an out of town guy coming in and I really don't know a whole lot of people there. You're a little more on edge. When you start the race, you're like, how's this person doing? But you kind of pick up on it quick because you can see how they're running other people. You can see the lines that they're taking. And like I said, there's always outliers where they just make literally at an oval track, a left turn on you and you weren't prepared for it. But
Laynad says in R Factor 2, the AI hits him back after he hits them. Coincidence? He's accusing them of holding a grudge.
That's right. There was some more arcade style racing games that were like that, weren't they? That they would remember. I know there was a NASCAR game that was like that. That would sit there and they would hold a grudge against you or something. But yeah. Anyway,
in Wreckfest, your single player mode,
that's right.
Rivals will, or at least it tells you they are. I'm not
sure.
No,
I've tried it. They do. They do. They hold a grudge.
All right. What else do we have going on?
All right. So race room. Sorry, that was needlessly
awesome.
long tangent, but
well, and just to notify people, we don't have like a big topic of discussion for the end of the show today, so to speak. So we're kind of doing that now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's part of it. Everybody in the chat was talking about AI and a few things. So I appreciate the chat being engaged, and actually it helps us kind of carry on a conversation. But now that I've beat that dead horse, Volkswagen IDR challenge in race room. I tried this. So this is their electric car. This is a different version of the car that, if I'm remembering this correctly, or did the Pikes Peak deal and did the record, if I remember correctly. So this car is a version. It's not the same car. It's a version of that car where Romain Dumas will try and set the record for an all-electric vehicle at the Nordschleife. So that's what the challenge was. I tried it. The car's just okay to me, but I saw other people were having a blast with it. So it's obviously fun for, depending on if you're into this type of car or not. It looks cool. Like, I like the look of the car.
Oh, it's bitchin'.
It's really neat. It's a really, really neat looking car.
So
you didn't get to try it, did you?
No, I didn't. That lap time though means you are, literally just flying though. That's
it's quick.
2 minutes faster than we're running with like the GT3 cars.
I noticed in running this car, lots of downforce, so you can really drive the car hard into the corner, but it kind of tapers off down the straightaway. It's limited in how fast it's going to go down the straightaway. But you can really, any corner that's remotely quick on the Nordschleife, you can bury the car into the corner.
That's a ballsy leaderboard. I like that. That's a manly man leaderboard.
Yeah, and there's people just doing ridiculously quick times.
But it's cool. I'm always, every time the topic of Nürburgring Nordschleife comes up, I'm always telling people or trying to remind people that there's so many things that makes this track important to motorsport or racing in general, but it's really become like the biggest proving ground track on earth, where if somebody builds a new car and they think it's fast for its class, the first thing you do is you have to go and run Nordschleife, because that's the leaderboard of, Corvette's done it, Cadillac's done it, Volkswagen's done it, Bugatti's done it, Ferrari, every
Viper,
car. Yeah. And it's like, so I love that aspect of this. And again, that's one of the things I think somebody said. I think there was some quote recently that says this is the most driven racetrack on earth.
Oh, wow.
And it makes sense. I think the quote said most raced, and it's like, that might not be true. But
race might not be accurate, but driven,
yes, because it's the tourist version every day, all day.
People in chat are talking about the DRS option. So they started development before they knew if they were going to have DRS or not. So this does not have DRS. I know they were talking about implementing it on the actual car. So it'll remains to be seen if they'll update it with a DRS option. But that's part of the problem right now is you don't have any DRS to open up the arrow, drop the wing, open it up so you get a little more speed down the longer straightaways.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's an interesting car to drive. It's not really my thing. I've driven, like, electric carts and stuff, and they take a little getting used to, just because they don't slow down the same.
Right.
So it's fine. But I see a bunch of other people were having a blast with it. So I know if you're into this type of idea and car, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool. It sounds funny.
Yeah, it just has the whine, and that's really, you don't have anything else.
Oh, it's just not right. I mean, I respect speed, right? So on one hand, on an engineering level, I'm like, that's cool, right?
Yeah, the electric motor is so brutal with torque.
But but cars are supposed to sound cool. That's part of it too. They're supposed to look cool, sound cool, and be fast on the track, right? I mean, anyway, I missed. I think it might have been Devin who said you need to try the alien isolation AI. I'm not sure what he meant by that, but that was a note thrown at you.
They're going back and forth, how predictable AI is, and there are games outside of racing that have very well done AI, and in particular, Alien Isolation. I love that game, by the way. Well, at least the first half to 2/3 of it. The alien in that game is super smart. It is totally unpredictable, and it is an incredibly smart AI. And so, you usually get AI that'll go in patterns. I know We're going off topic again, but they go in patterns. The alien in Alien Isolation does not go in patterns. It actually looks for you and listens. I mean, you'll see it. You'll be like in a locker or hiding behind something, and it'll come into the room and it'll stop. And it's surveying, trying to figure out where you are. It is one of the scariest games I have ever played. I love it. It was a good game.
Hey,
anyway, that's what he's talking about.
Someday we'll get to the point where you have an AI driver who's running behind you, and he's going to spend that 2 or 3 laps sizing you up, looking for that spot where you make just the smallest of mistakes that he can optimize, and wait for that moment to make his move, right? Wouldn't that be great? I mean,
so how AI, this is what I've learned from messing with AI. It kind of does that already.
Mm-hmm.
But you're giving it parameters. So when I redo the AI for Assetto Corsa, you give it what they call an AI spline, which means here in my driving, this is what I believe to be the best way around the track. So this is your preferred driving line. Then you have borders that you give the AI. And what I found was those borders don't necessarily have to be at the track's edge, because what the AI does is it reads calculations, how fast it's catching you, how wide the space is that it's trying to make the pass. And it reads, like, as it goes into a corner, it tries to see if you're making I know I'm facing the opposite way, but if you're making a left-hand corner, it looks for this barrier, this invisible barrier around the outside of the corner, and it judges the distance. So it takes all that into account. So where the AI has problems is trying to adjust when you, the driver, make an erratic behavior, because it's calculating what you're doing.
Right.
Versus all the other variables on the track, cars in front of you, borders, that kind of thing. So as you go into the corner, if it can't see that barrier, or it feels like it's going too fast, that's where the AI has problems. So then you have these other things that these text files that you do to override what the AI is doing. And what I've found is the AI that I've done seems to react much more willing to battle, and they are much faster. I've gained 5 seconds on the track with AI at 100%.
Right.
Because they in a sense, they may not be as advanced as what you're thinking of, but they kind of do that.
Right.
So
they're
it's
trying to. It's just
yeah,
figuring out, getting a little more.
it's not as complex, right?
Right. Right.
Obviously not a human, but it to a degree, it's not just I drive on. It's not like the old, for people that ran Gran Turismo back in the day and some of these other games, they follow a line, they don't deviate, that's it. That's not how AI typically works nowadays.
Right. Yeah, DJ, I wish they would do that. Do fake engine noises on electric cars.
And there you go.
I would like, you know what? They make cars now where you can like change your LED lighting colors. Yeah, you know what? I want a sound effects pack that's timed with my throttle pedal that could be anything from a Formula One engine to a fire-breathing NHRA car, you know?
Right.
And a volume level for my external speakers to the world.
So with slot cars, God, we're all over the place today. Sorry, but with slot cars,
I think it was Tom who said, "This is the Beyond the Sim. There is no off topic."
yeah, right. There is no topic. Analysis paralysis. So slot cars, they actually did that. There was a manufacturer called Fly Slot that tried these speakers, and they put these little tiny speakers in the slot car. And depending on the voltage it was getting, which is in relation to the trigger pull, the RPM would change. So it was kind of cool, but because typically it's in a slot car, it's so fast, you're not on a scale track.
Right.
So you get these burp, burp, burp,
right,
burp, burp, burp. So that it was kind of annoying at the same time. But I mean, it was a cool idea. And we talked about RC cars earlier. I remember years ago, they were trying to figure out a way to do what we're doing with esports and sim racing. And part of the problem was engine noise. Electric cars had such a hard time garnering any sort of audience,
right,
because there was no noise, there was no excitement.
Right.
So there was this big thing I remember years ago where they were talking about adding sound to the electric cars, because at the time electric was really starting to take off. Before, the appeal of the gas cars was the engine noise, obviously, but you could run longer.
Right.
Well, then you got the lipo batteries.
Yep.
And better electronics, and all of a sudden, and they were faster now. So those just electric started taking off. But they realized that, they do all this advertising and nobody would show up. Well, it's an RC car, so it's hard for people to not see those things as toys.
Right.
Number one,
especially when they sound like it. No.
Well, yeah, that's the problem. Number two, they don't sound like what people are. It doesn't sound exciting. Mm-hmm. So you can have the greatest race in the world, and only the people that are into RC are going to get that. And it's kind of like sim racing. It's really hard for people to get into it until they get to something that they identify with.
Right.
So that's the advantage that sim racing has over RC stuff.
Right.
So anyway, just you said the sound, making the sound thing, and it made me think of two other completely sort of relevant topics.
But it's exactly the same scenario. I mean, and I think that for a lot of people who, and I'm not trying to be pro electric cars are fine. If you want one, get one. I'm not. But I think a lot of people, there's they want a sound of a car. I mean, for me, that would be a big hindrance. Let me rephrase it. For me, I'd need both. Like, I could totally have an electric car, but I'm keeping my Datsun with the fire-breathing V8, because I like to sit in it. I don't even need to drive it. I'll just turn it on and sit in it, and I'm pretty happy. Vop, 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 vop. I'm like, that's cool. I like that. I could do this all day.
It's the same reason that I have my Hellcat. And then you get in, and when you push the button, it's all, whoa.
Yeah.
And it makes it giggle a little.
Yeah, I don't even have to move. I could just do that, and I'm happy.
Right? So, it's the same thing with the sprint car. I mean, I've driven other stuff. There, the way the sprint car sounds, that mechanically fuel injected V8 with no flywheel, you will never, ever hear anything like it.
Right.
It is so raw and so brutal sounding. And I mean, there's no flywheel in it. So you just whoa, whoa, whoa. Where sports cars, even race cars, they typically have a wind down because of the flywheel. Whoa, whoa.
Right.
Sprint cars, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Well,
It's instant throttle response. It is just unreal.
And most race cars have full exhaust systems still. On those you just have a pipe.
Well, we have to run mufflers, but I mean, yeah, it's just headers to a muffler. Oh God, I ran Vegas without mufflers. Holy, somebody's, want to talk about engine noise. You can't hear anything out of the gears. It's only got one gear, but the rear end in that car, oh my God, it's loud. I mean, in the car, it's just like, I was earplugs and everything I could do because it's just deafening.
Has anyone ever proposed electric dirt racing yet?
Yeah, they've talked about it. They've tried several different things. They've tried, they've tried a bunch of stuff. I don't know if anything's necessarily taking off. I'd have to look into it more.
They're all fighting the same problem. There's only one problem, because the cars are actually superior. Let's just be honest, right? Just like in the world of RC, it's like, well, ever since battery tech got to a certain point, because I mean, electric motors have been moving, mountains, so to speak, for hundreds of years, 100 years, but the batteries are what allowed it to be portable, where it could be a car, whether it's an RC or a real car. And it's like, well, now, I mean, it's just, I think it's pretty safe to say that if you were to build the ultimate car, this Volkswagen, for example, it's going to be 4 electric motors at the wheel doing it. But it's just not cool if it doesn't roar.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's an impressive piece of machinery. So I congratulate Volkswagen in the development that they've put into this car, and it's great that Race Room gives us a chance to experience something like this. So if you're remotely curious or you like this kind of thing, definitely go to Race Room. I don't believe you pay anything for it. I think you just click on it and can run.
Yeah,
as far as I can tell.
That's cool.
So
that's
cool. It's a great looking car. Man, I really like the look of it. I can't get over that part. I really like the look of the car.
It is a beautiful car shape. All right, so not such a beautiful car shape, but certainly roaring engines. Big Ben Games is now talking about FIA Truck Racing Championship. Promises a new experience for fans of racing games. I haven't seen racing trucks. Riza? Oh, wait, let me mute this shit.
Copyright.
Yeah, when they pull my show, that's it. But yeah, it's coming out July 2019. FIA Truck Racing Championship on the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PC, and Nintendo Switch. This would be fun.
I'm kind of looking forward to it.
I want to do a racing series of this.
I like the trucks, and I believe this is Kiloton is making this, which is the folks that do the division of WRC and V Rally 4. I believe this is the same developer. So Big Ben is the publisher. I believe this is Kiloton, if I saw that correctly at the end. But it looks cool. I hope it's cool.
Here. Oh, didn't even say. It looks super duper cool.
At the very bottom in tiny text, I believe that says Kiloton.
Okay, maybe I can blow it up. We might blow up the whole internet here. Oh, what did it do? Where's it going to go? Oh, it put it over here.
Restart it.
That's not very big. And
I
it
can
made
hear
it
it.
loud again. There
But
we
anyway,
go.
it'll be out July 2019 on basically all the current systems. So
Oh, they just showed them 3 wide. They look like they shouldn't work. It looks like you should hit the brakes and it should just fall on its face.
right.
It's so wrong. But they're badass. Look at
Yeah.
these things. I've watched those
cool.
race. Like, they don't do this in America, I don't think.
They
Smokey and the
tried.
Bandit. Remember Smokey and the Bandit? They were racing
Yeah.
full big rigs on like Daytona.
Yep.
I don't remember where it was, but it was like, why don't they do that?
They tried for a while. There is a series that's in America, and it's kind of had a hard time starting. They actually came out, I think it was them, could have been another division, but came out to Thunder Hill. That's just a little ways away from me.
Yeah.
And ran, and they're not as cool as these. These are a little bit more professional, but I don't know. There's something I especially like. I mean, the flat nose ones are cool, but I like that one where it has the nose to it. I think that one's cool. So I hope it's good. Cross my fingers.
What's cool in the video actually is they're showing real life footage and going back and forth between real life and game footage. And it actually makes the game look that much better because it's not horribly obvious when they switch.
Right.
Anyway,
Devin says, so the game stages tracks will look good, but the force feedback will be kind of meh. which is the criticism of WRC 7.
Yep.
I did see something on WRC 8 that they are really doubling down on wheel users. Like they're really trying to make the experience for wheel users the best they can, which is, they kind of explained it like they went into a lot more testing, trying to make the experience for wheel users better than it's ever been in any one of their titles. So again, cross my fingers because I like WRC 7.
Yeah, that would be. I agree. It anything to make them all better, right? I mean, that's what I'm always.
Well,
down
that's the
for.
hope.
Yeah, I mean, all of them across the board, and
DJ
I don't think
Racer. Go ahead.
I don't think you have to take away from the experience by making it better force feedback. Like, it shouldn't affect the controller playability on certain types of titles either. There's no reason that can't do both. Because I've seen it, so
it can be done.
Yeah, it can be done. All right.
The DJ Racer said those trucks at Talladega, please. Can you imagine trying to draft those things around?
That would be awesome.
That reminds me, actually, out at one of our local dirt tracks, they were running big rigs on the dirt oval.
Oh, that would be great.
Dude, it was scary.
Talk about diversion. I was watching Ice Road Truckers the other day.
Oh, there you go.
And watching these guys drift, not just a big rig truck, but with the full 53-foot trailer, and like literally putting the cab sideways so they could then punch it, almost like how you do a front wheel drive car in a weird way. Because they were trying to steer with the drive wheels essentially to get it to pull the trailer where they wanted to at a faster rate. But watching it on camera, it's like, man, they are putting the drift into that cab again to get it so the drive wheels can then pull it that way real quick. And it was like it was some of the most skilled driving I've ever seen in my life. I mean, I don't care what your discipline of racing is. You've got nothing on what these guys were doing.
I had my own rig when I was running the sprint car, so that I can't imagine. That sounds scary to me because I know what my truck and trailer. I had a Volvo Vela, and oh god, people are gonna roast me. 670 had the big Cummins engine in it. Anyway, I had that, and I know what that thing can and can't do. I smoked a couple stoplights with that. So that sounds scary.
Oh, awesome. All right, what else?
Here, this one's all you.
Oh,
Fanatec.
Okay, here we go. Fanatec. Today, stay tuned on the SImpit. Today could be Fanatec Podium DD Day. I got a really weird email from a logistics company that I've never heard of. Nowhere on it did it actually say Fanatec. It said received delivery must be present on April 26th.
Ooh.
That's today. So
Shaun could be a lucky boy.
the dog goes nuts. I will be running from the show.
He's like, I'll be back in 2 minutes.
Yeah, give me a moment, and I'm not unboxing it now. That would be a coup. Okay, so anyway, but this announcement came out yesterday, I do believe, and I think it's only limited to the people who pre-ordered. I think there's little shenanigans on who can even order it just yet. Like, there's a 48-hour, I think, hold on general public being able to order one, and we might even still be under that. You know, you can't get one yet, but there's still 491 remaining, at least of when I did. Let's see how many sold since this morning. We'll hit refresh. But this is the Club Sports Steering Wheel F1 2019 edition, 480. 11 sold since I did this morning, like a couple hours ago.
Going like hotcakes.
But yeah, this is the official. So last year we saw the F1 2018 model. It was uniquely built for and branded for that esport competition. It's what all the competitors were using in that. And this is the F1 2019 version. And apparently if you buy one for $1 more, I think you can get F1 2019. Is that or 2018? I don't remember, but it was like, well, I did not order one of these, by the way. So even though I'm waiting on the wheelbase, I'm going to be using my tried and true, back when you could get it for $180 Formula Fanatec rim. Just a little metal Formula. Like, I'm like, and mine actually has magnetic shifters on it, but
you're fancy.
But all the prices of the wheels would just keep kind of going up. And that one, man, it was $180 back then. And it was like, this is a really good wheel for the money. And this one here, which looks awesome, but $350 for a wheel rim. So anyway, looks awesome though.
It's a good looking wheel, but Sim Racing, yay, a different color wheel. Is that 5 different colors of the same wheel?
Yes.
That would be
It
correct.
looks like it comes with little covers so that you could change it back to the other color scheme if you preferred the 2018 model.
There you go. That's exciting.
But look at it. It does have like 6 paddle shifter thingies on the back. They're all magnetic. So this is quite an upgrade. So when I'm raving about my $180 one, well, I think I put another 100 and something into the magnetic shifters. But anyway, it's a cool wheel. It's a cool wheel. Didn't order one. We'll see if we can get our hands on one at some point.
I'm looking forward to everybody's impressions of the Fanatec Direct Drive. Be interesting to see once it's out in the wild and people get their hands on it and use it for not just a couple days, but like a month or two.
Sure.
And see, try it with a bunch of titles and just see if it really. I'm more interested. I'm interested in both sides. I'm interested from somebody like you that has used other direct drive wheels, and I'm also interested in somebody that has never taken the direct drive plunge, trying the Fanatec product and seeing what it's like.
Right. I completely agree. The other thing that on the whole timing of what, I always talk about the biggest sluts in sim racing. I think this week's slut, hands down, will be the podium because there will probably be about 4,000 videos up in the next week. And that's not even Fanatics doing. That's going to be us, the general public, doing it. But what was my point? Oh, but the inevitable patch or upgrade that will come. Because as much beta testing as they've done, and this has been in the hands of a handful of testers. It's been at a handful of events. It's been used in the Esports series. So they've gotten limited feedback, but at some point they're going to get massive feedback.
Right. They're going to,
So you can expect a secondary patch that might even change some major things, like the power or force feedback or things like that. So I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait for the door to knock. I'm like, ooh, I guess today's the day I can't go anywhere, right? Because it'll be just my luck that I go to check the mail even, and somehow you come back and there's a slip on the door, be back tomorrow. It's like, or no, it'll be back on Monday maybe if it's a logistics company.
Oh,
So
And then you're dying all weekend.
I'm not leaving. I got that dog chained to the front door right now. No, that's not true. Where is he? He's sleeping.
You better hope you don't, you're not in the middle of something that you can't leave.
Yeah, well, I'll drop anything.
Like the
Like if it
bathroom.
happens right now, I'll have to drop it. Okay.
He's like, oh God, put your pants back on.
Oh, so bad, so bad. So, all right.
That's
What-
funny.
What else? Oh, this is you. This is your story here. This is awesome.
Yeah, so this was pretty interesting. They teased it on their Facebook page, but VRC, the folks that made the Formula NA mod for Assetto Corsa, they did this. And it's a prototype series mod that they're working on. So I just thought this was a really cool project. They're going to do the Bentley Speed 8. They're doing, I believe that's the Audi R8. And then the Panos Esperante LMP car.
Esperante. Man, I
that
wish I could do that kind of modeling.
Right?
I would really like to be able to do that. There's two parts to
I
that,
love this
by the
car.
way. I wish I could do the modeling, like physically knew how to write code or do art programs, whatever, to do that. That looks like 3D Max, if I'm not mistaken, but that means somewhere it's a drawn model, like a flat model wrapped around a base of some sort.
Yeah, like a wire mesh or something.
But that's only part one, because then part two is, man, I wish I had the artistic ability to draw, because that is such a beautiful thing to me. Like, I'm not an art guy. And like I go to museums and I'm somewhat bored, looking at paintings and sculptures for the most part, not entirely, but take me to a car museum and it's the opposite. And it's like when I look at this and it's like, man, I would print out this picture of the Bentley and put it on my wall. And that would make me as happy as a Picasso. Other than I'm also very smart when it comes, I understand money. I'll take the Picasso for sure. I understand the difference, but to me, this is the best of art.
I just, this era, I love the lines of these cars. I'm a fan of the Bentley. R8 was a staple for a really long time.
Nothing can beat that Audi for like, as long as it was around, right? I mean, did anything ever beat?
Because then they ran the R8 and then it went to the R10, then the R15, and then the R18. But this one in particular, man, this killed a lot of other LMP cars on the track. I have slot cars of this R8, and I have in particular, did you ever see the crocodile car?
The crocodile car.
So they made this, so I think it was Australia, if I'm not mistaken, but this particular car, maybe I'll have to bring it on the show next week and show it off, but it's an LMP car, this R8, and it's a crocodile.
I'm looking at it now.
It's cool. Like, so this particular car had a bunch of variations to liveries and stuff like that. So that's what makes this car impressive. And then, to me, maybe other people don't think so, but the Panos is a beautiful car. Both the LMP version and the GT1 version. I love this car.
Yeah, that was a cool car. That was an iconic car in American, well, not just American, but iconic American race car. We can make that statement for sure.
Yeah. Well, it sounds badass too.
Yeah, it did. All right, what else? Why do I have this Codemasters? We already talked so much about Codemasters. They moved the studios, you know that? They moved their new offices in Birmingham.
Oh, okay.
Very shishi looking place. I guess they're doing all right. It looks like Facebook or something. So congratulations to them. No other news. We already covered I just left this in the wrong spot, it looks like. What else? R Factor 2. Okay, so this is funny this morning when Shaun was trying to read German. And I'm cut and pasting, the thing, trying to figure out what this says because it looked like some cool news. And anyway, Billy pointed out there is a translate button. So all my work, all I had to do was read the rest of the screen when it told me, hey, you can read it in your native language.
Yeah,
what do you know?
Facebook is good for that.
But the A1 Esport League, I think these guys are mainly known for like Project Cars. I think they do a big Project Cars effort with the A1 Esport League. They have 7,000 euro, are waiting for the best R Factor 2 pilots in the A1 Esport League. Get your ticket to the offline finale in Vienna. I like, that's the other cool thing about this whole esport thing is,
And it's an offline final. I didn't pay attention to that. That's cool. So they're going to put everybody together?
Yeah.
Sweet.
And
I like that.
And it's kind of, I guess, what we were talking about earlier a little bit.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah. And I guess we'll finish that since we're here taking a diversion Friday. Billy and I before the show were talking about esport and what's going on, and I think Billy a few shows ago even mentioned, we need a lower rank, like, exclude the pros. You look at NASCAR. You got now I'm dating myself. You got the Winston, then you've got the Busch, and then you've got the Truck Series. And then you got late model, and it goes down and down and down the list. And the prize payouts go lower and lower and lower, but the cost of entry is lower, and the competition is lower, so that you still have a chance at winning, right? I mean, that's kind of the way racing works. But in the esport world, we only have that pinnacle super pro league for the most part. I mean, there are always little competitions. But anyway, 7,000 euro on the line may or may not attract the bigs is what I'm getting at. This could be that next level, that semi-pro baseball AAA. And make it so that it's a little more open to, you're still your A-list sim racers, let's face it. Money on the line is not going to go to a hack like me.
Well, right. And I think there's a difference between, we were also talking about the market, the marketing machine behind a lot of this esports stuff is really to drive. There is a bigger goal in mind, and it's to drive people to whatever particular sport, discipline for sim racing. So in other words, obviously F1 2018, drive fans to F1. NASCAR Heat, drive fans to NASCAR. Same thing with the iRacing, stuff like that. So when you have a competition like this, to me, this is more about the sim racing aspect rather than the marketing push.
Right.
So this would be a perfect opportunity. I think they're doing something great here with making it an offline final that makes it an event. Instead of a bunch of races that get lost in the mix, just like F1 2018, just like, I just lost the other one, GT Sport. Those are events.
Right.
There's not a bunch of them, and everybody goes there, and it's all about the personalities as well as the racing itself. Now, obviously, those are to promote a product as well. This does not do that. So to me, this holds a different weight to it.
Right.
So that maybe some of the people that aren't yet, quote unquote, alien professionals, whatever you want, they get a shot.
Sure.
At doing something like this. And I think that's what gets exciting about some of this other stuff is get some fresh blood, or those guys that are just right on the cusp of starting to make it a name for themselves.
Right.
And especially when you have an offline final, that promotes that, right? That makes it a big deal, not just another race on, that's being streamed online.
Sure. It also creates in the same, where does NASCAR find its next gen drivers? It's from the next lower tier series. They're promoted. We talked Premier League. Teams are relegated and delegated to keep the best at the top. Formula 1 uses Formula 2, Formula 3 as recruiting ground when a driver is injured or retires or isn't cutting it, and they get rid of them. Those are where the next gen drivers come from. Same thing in our esport. Brendan teased us on Monday, joking, like, am I in F1 2019? And he never answered the question, but he threw out the original question, which is, well, who's to say he's even in? Now he's two-time defending
Right.
champion, so you would think, but maybe not. I read stories about these like $1 million gamers playing Call of Duty and other games retiring, and they weren't retiring so much because they'd made a lifetime worth of money and they're gonna just live on a beach. It was more like it's not an easy life either. It's stressful,
Right.
and so
It's very stressful, and your window to be good in those particular games are typically, not always, but typically very short.
yeah, because everyone's coming for you. So we need these smaller events in order for the next who's who to make a name. Just like in baseball, you play AAA so that you hopefully do really well and you get drafted, or brought up to the big league. Actually, I guess already been drafted by AAA because they're affiliated with real teams. So you're already in their program, but you still get pulled up to the big league, so to speak. Anyway, so that's great, and I'm hoping that that's what we see an explosion of in the next year to come. Let's say a lot more of these events that are maybe only a few $1,000s total, but more frequency and more availability to everybody to get involved. Maybe even more. Let's even call them open tournaments. Because by the time you get to what we're now referring to as esport, it's an exclusive list. You can't just qualify your way in. You're either in or you're out, period. There's no indie qualifying, that leaves a few spots. That's a great controversy this year, too, is how many spots are
Right.
left
That
open,
we can get into that later, but that's a whole nother
And it's a
bag.
great argument because I honestly am a little
Yeah.
conflicted and torn. It's like, well, I can make
Mhm.
both arguments on this one, which shows you how tough. Like you said, we could go into that one another day. So I'm hoping that there's an explosion of open tournaments, smaller payouts, and more opportunity. And like Billy said, since esport right now is more of a marketing play for these companies associated than it is trying to necessarily create the next NFL. Now, I think that's to come as well. But right now, it's more on the marketing side and the outreach program, the filling stand, filling the seats, creating tomorrow's fans of Formula One, NASCAR, whatever your esport division is, Blancpain even, and taking it to the level where they're getting more of us actually involved in it since it is marketing. Anyway, I made that somehow really long.
And they also note that the A1 Esports League is open for drivers with residence in Germany, Austria, Switzerland, Liechtenstein, or Luxembourg.
That's why I needed translate.
Liechtenstein. Something. Sorry. I'm probably butchering that. I'm hoping I was close.
So they're going to have some 30-person hot lap qualifiers, and then 6-player showdowns, and then it looks like a 24-player shootout. Kind of weird. Maybe it's a language barrier thing. I'm looking at their structure here, and it's kind of interesting. It looks like the whole thing will be wrapped up by June. So starting now with open qualifiers, April, May, June will be the finals. Hawaii is the sponsor. The phone.
Yes,
I don't know if I'm saying that correctly or not.
Hawaii. I don't know. I have not. I didn't even know about this until the other day. I had no idea that there was even such a thing. So,
let's see what GT Sport is this on me? Is this me?
If you want it to be.
They're opening the next stage. This will be stage 2 of the FIA Gran Turismo Championship 2019 series, and a schedule of the event. And they are one of the ones. It's great to see GT Sport back in this, by the way. I mean, that's my big takeaway because it had been very quiet. The last Academy event was quite some time ago. They did do that one invitational event that Igor Fraga went on to win. But now we're kind of getting back to the real deal, everyday, real top of the line.
Well, the one that happened earlier in the year was stage 1.
Right, and this one here being stage 2, coming up from May 1st through June 1st, the Nations Cup, stage 2 of the 2019 series. Race schedule, and each round and the top 16 superstars are below. So, At the end of rounds 11 through 12, the best 3 round. Anyway, that's showing you how the points are going to be tallied. Because on the Nations one, I think it's where you have massive amounts of people scoring points.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then to counter that, the Manufacturers Series is where you'll get a team together and race with that particular manufacturer. So
Now
two different ways to get in.
They did all of this last year, essentially. They did. I think there was a.
Well, they did it last year, and they did, yeah. And like I said, stage one, or we talked about it earlier in the year. They did the first round, I'll call it, of this, where they did the Nations Cup and they did the Manufacturers Championship and had all the hot shoes in their driving. And that's the one I was actually really entertained. I thought they did a really good job. They had good racing. The races didn't really take a long time, so you got these quick, lots of action, really quick. They basically are in spec cars. Even though there are different cars on the track, they can't do a whole lot, so it's really up to the person driving the car. And it makes for some really, really good racing. At least I thought it was. Some of it was actually pretty intense. Like there was some times where you're just like, oh, ooh, couple side by side moments, and really, there was a couple races where guys deep in the field worked their way through.
Right.
And the one guy, there was and I'm totally blanking on names, so I apologize. But one gentleman, he was one of the favorites, and I think he went off in like the last qualifier for the final, like in the first two corners, and that was it. He was done. He couldn't make it up.
Right.
So it had drama. It had good racing. You could identify with the cars. So again, we talk about the idea of a presentation rather than just another race.
Right.
And GT Sport does that.
And I think that's, we use that article by Austin Ognoski about esport, and that's, I think, kind of the kind of stuff that he was pointing out. It's we need to put on a good enough show that's entertaining. And when you look at the F1 2019 and the production value is kind of what I think they brought to the action as much as anything else. Same thing with the big Gran Turismo one. Big stage, big lights, good announcers, good camera work, a full crew, and putting on a production that you would see for anything of that magnitude. Versus we do still see just some regular online broadcasts of some very big events that are no more dramatic than, and no offense to me and my friends at the Lionheart, but, we're broadcast on the iRacing Esport Network, and I don't know if you can differentiate that from even the top of the line broadcast, because it's the same production level. There's, and I think that we need to put on a good show if we think anyone beyond just us are going to watch it.
Yeah. Yep. We need to. It's tough because you're removing part of the motorsport appeal, I think, is the risk involved. And so there's no risk involved in this.
Right.
So you're going to lose some people automatically. And so the only way to really draw them in is to give them something they identify with and make sure that the action on the track, the presentation, all that is up to snuff. It's at the highest quality available. So people don't think this is a toy, it's a joke, that kind of thing. This is a serious thing.
Right.
Look at what we're doing.
Sure. Give you a great example if you're having trouble figuring out what we're talking about here, but I'll use my practice race for Lionheart where I lost my arrow and crashed on the wall. And in real life, if that had happened, the whole world would have been sitting in suspense waiting if there's a radio. Like, is he communicating to his team?
Yeah.
No, yes, no. Are we seeing any head or hand movement? Then you're still waiting on regardless of what you hear or see, you're still waiting on the safety crew to get there and get him out of the car, right? And everyone's on the edge of their seats. And I know it's kind of a morbid thought that that's what we're entertained by, but it is, and we're sitting there.
It's the idea that not everybody can do this, right?
Yes.
It's the idea, I will say this, I am stupid enough to do that.
Right. Or have the
to
balls to do it.
Well, I wasn't going to give myself that much credit, but I'm stupid enough to strap myself into a sprint car that's basically just an engine and four wheels with almost, 950 horsepower in a 1,375 pound car. I am dumb enough to do that.
Right.
And there's not a lot of people that are willing to make that jump. So that's the appeal. We're like you're saying, this is more everybody can do it. And while there's an appeal to everybody can do it, that also takes away a lot of what makes it special.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to present a product then that is that exceeds that expectation, that gets rid of the idea that there's no danger involved, that not everybody can do this because everybody can do this. So what makes it better? What is the thing that overcomes those factors? And it's the same thing. Lionheart, for as great as a series it is, it's a fairly frequent series. So it just becomes as from a spectator standpoint, unless you know people that are in it, not a whole lot of people are going to watch.
Right.
And that's just the reality. And the reality is because it looks just like another race.
Sure.
You guys aren't all in the same location. You've got a bunch of races throughout the year. It's not just like 4 or 5.
Right.
So you miss this. There's no specialness to the event for however good the racing is. It doesn't really
there's
matter.
not even anything on the line per event, right? I mean, because even if there's something on the line other than the points, just like any other league race, right? You needed that other something. Yes, the racing's good, but there's a lot of good racing to choose from, right?
Right.
Yeah, and I think that is going to be one of the battles of esport, because you do need a replacement. You need these people to be characters. You need them to all be Alipacalas. And somebody's going to come out and do the floss as he walks out on the stage.
Oh,
and
God, let's not do that.
but it's like you need a reason to root for them and be a fan. I always talk about someday we'll wear our sim racing hero jerseys, just like you would a football player's jersey. And it will be when these people become important enough and become big enough characters that we can, look up to them in that type of a way. But then I can be more captivated by what I'm watching when I'm watching the race.
Right. And I think the difference is GT Sport or F1 2018 can put on these events and get, in my opinion, a really good amount of viewers.
Yeah, they did great.
Whereas some of these other esports competition, not to take away anything from, let's do the iRacing peak antifreeze, right? There's so many races. They're not in the same location. It's not an event.
Right.
So then it becomes, do you know the person that's driving, or are you a fan of that particular discipline? Like, you race it, so you understand how hard it is, and you're watching these other guys run. Even then, they won't get as many views for that race as somebody that is participating in that race, because it is more personality driven than it is about the racing itself. And whereas I would argue that GT Sport or F120, the F1 series, are more about the event itself, because it's made itself special. Whatever kind of marketing push you want to talk about, that's absolutely true. It's there to promote a product, but it's also about the product itself, not just the person driving. So
no, because you get to watch them walk out on stage. You get to see the sweat on their brow. You get to see their reactions to the moment. And honestly, some of that you don't even really get in real life racing, because our drivers are in helmets. They're buckled in. They can't throw their hands up and frustrated. They can't do this to the camera, that famous move. Yeah. So that is actually a pro on what we bring to the table for entertainment value. Now, I don't know if it's a realistic concept, and I don't know if it's even been thought of in those circles, but like, what if, now that there's $100,000 on the line for the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series, using iRacing an example, when it was only $10,000 to the winner, and then, a few more grand a couple places down, but now we're talking some money out there, right? Well, at what point, and this is bandwidth dependent, it's not that easy, but couldn't you at some point start demanding that your drivers use webcams? And that somewhere you have a production facility grabbing, 43 webcams and a production team pressing some buttons, putting on a show. Right. I don't know if we're there today on bandwidth, and I don't know if all drivers have it, and every alien driver would tell you, I can't spare it if I got it. But there's a lot of money on the line. I need to put on a good show so that we can do this again next year. And
yeah, I just don't think you're ever going to get that with a series. They've upped the prize money. What, tenfold?
Yeah.
So
yeah, essentially,
are you getting tenfold the amount of viewers?
No.
So the problem becomes where it's just not special. And I don't mean special as in importance, because I think the races are important. I think you're seeing some of the absolute best competing, but it's just not an event. We've struggled with the same thing at doing our regional and local series in sprint cars. We struggled with, how do we make this an event? Because we were running into the same problem. You go and race, you have races almost every weekend during the spring, summer, and fall. So how do you make these things special that people want to come out?
Right.
And, we had talked about, fireworks. Let's make it more like Supercross, where there's fireworks and a big spectacle. But when you do that every week, that's not special anymore.
Right.
So it really becomes the demand for the product. And like you said, I think back in the day when my dad used to race, they did driver intros because the local guys were the heroes.
Right.
They only raced like 10 or 15 races a year, and they rolled out on track. They lined up and they did drive, the flagmen came down and they said so-and-so and the number of blah, 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 with announcing the sponsors when there's no roar of the engine so everybody can hear it.
Right.
And the guy, waves the checkered flag in front of the car and goes to the next one. People had time to go get a beer. People had time to go get a corn dog, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I never got that.
Yeah.
That was not, because they're now all about trying to pack as many cars into the pits, because that's where they're trying to make up their revenue instead of making up the rev. So it's you need something to make it. I guess the point is you need something to make it special. You need something to break through the crowd, all the other voices that are out there.
Right.
And again, we circle back to GT Sport and F1. They do that well.
Yeah.
And I don't know why they're not yet the model for what everybody should be doing.
Right. I agree completely. I completely agree. Amir, I thought we kind of covered this last show, if I'm not mistaken, but he said more of streamer and content creator questions. PewDiePie and DLive are in collaboration to stream exclusively on their platform and push the brand. On top of that, the way YouTube handles copyright claims. Didn't we cover this last week?
Yeah, that was last week.
Amir, I don't see your new question, or it's not in Beyond the Sim, so I'm missing it, and I only have access to so many things here while we're live. Tofi mentions that by 2021, European EVs must be fitted with sound emitters, so you won't be able to turn it off. But that's more. It could be a horn or a buzz. It won't be. It'll probably be some kind of. But that's for a pedestrian's sake.
I was going to say, is that just to alert you that something's coming?
Yeah, I believe so. So Amir, I missed your question because we did talk about the PewDiePie and the mixed streaming. I don't know if I addressed so much the copyright issue, but if their channel is successful and they want to make money and stay out of court, it'll only be so long before they ultimately have to do what YouTube is doing. I think it's safe to say YouTube would not be doing what they're doing if it weren't for previous lawsuits or fear of a coming lawsuit, because it's in their best interest to not actually stop anything. So at some point you'll see that happen at their success as well.
Getting back to making things special, Devin's like, he's talking to me. He's all, you have to use that voice of yours to make it special. Got to give us an oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Now and again to get us pumped. I feel like I should be like the Kool-Aid guy. Oh yeah.
There you go. Someone's talking.
At one time I did want to be a voice actor. Like I when I was younger, like I really practiced on trying to do all these different voices.
You just need to send me a demo reel. I live in LA. I'll hand it out.
Yeah, well, I could have gone down to San Francisco and done all that, but I had no confidence in myself, and that's a whole nother story. But
Theodore says spaceship sound for the car. Like I said, I want I want to be
like the Jetsons.
If I have to have it, then I want to be able to pick from a selection of them, just like you can pick your ringtone on your phone. And yeah, I want the Jetsons whirling sound for mine, or I want Fred Flintstone's bowling feet. You know.
It would be awesome if you were sitting at a light in your electric vehicle, and when it took off, it did the Fred Flintstone's whatever that goofy sound from when they took off. Oh my goodness, I think I would die laughing. I can't imagine standing at a stoplight waiting to cross the street, and a car takes off and does that sound
that would be so good.
Oh man, if I had a sound effect, that would have been so much better, because I could have pushed it. It would have worked. It would have been funny.
So I wonder how they're going to handle that. They'll probably, now that we've had fun with it, they'll probably come up with some noise that's like, this is the official EV noise, and it'll probably be stupid and boring and no fun at all. And I'll keep telling you how lame electric cars are as far as manlyhood goes. They're awesome vehicles. No offense, John. I didn't mean that to offend. John just got him a Cadillac ELR. Speaking of electric cars. But it doesn't do a Fred Flintstone sound. Now, if it did, if they did that, I'd be like, okay, what?
That is now the standard for being cool in an electric car, is to have that sound when you're accelerating.
My Datsun 240, I don't want any LED lighting, right? I don't want any changing colors. I want roar of the engine, and that's all I care about. Now, if I had an electric vehicle, though, well, now I saw like Lamborghini paint that was like,
I saw that video where the guy was,
that's awesome. But you couldn't pay me to do that to my Datsun. But if I had an electric car, I wouldn't do it to a Lamborghini either, by the way. But if I had an electric car, what the hell? We might as well, like, you ever seen a car like the Philippines, like a taxi from the Philippines?
Perhaps like the Nissan Leaf. Isn't that one of their electric cars?
Yeah. And I should be able to, like, press buttons and put themes on the side of my car. It should have those LEDs in the wheels so you can have animations playing in the wheels.
Oh, great. Now we're going to have everybody staring at each other while they're passing, distracted driving.
When I was a kid, you couldn't even hang your graduation tassel from the rear view mirror without getting pulled over because it was too much of a distraction. But now we'll have LED driven themes on our cars. Why the hell not? If it's electric, I might as well have everything, right?
Well, yeah. Shoot for the moon or the stars, whatever the saying is.
Shoot for the moon, but if I can get Flintstone's toes for sound effects, I'm in.
Oh my! I think I'm gonna have to send you something. I think I'm gonna have to make a video and send you something. That's what I'm gonna do. I don't anybody steal that idea. Take the IDR and then put the Fred Flintstone sound.
Oh, I love it. Oh, too funny.
Well, that brings us to the end of the news. Whatever kind of news we made that.
Yeah, I got one more piece of news. Billy has done such a good job here at SoundCloud.
Oh, thank you.
And so, yeah, episode 17 was last week's show, and it's already up on SoundCloud and other iTunes type, podcast places. But you'll find every show that we've done Beyond the Sin, there to watch on the mobile or listen on the mobile. 71 people downloaded the last show. That's, I think, the highest we've gotten on them. That's kind of cool. It's 71
Every
people.
week it's slowly gaining traction, which there's so many people that watch it here, so I don't expect it to do big numbers, but those people that want to listen to it on the go, and it's every week it's just slowly gaining more and more traction, which is great. So it's all that's possible due to everybody in the chat supporting us and all the super chats that came in to, it did cost money. So that was nice. And so, yeah, it's on SoundCloud, it's on iTunes and Stitcher, and then RSS feeds. So whatever other podcast service you can get an RSS feed on. And I try to get the current show out before the weekend's over is my goal. Sometimes the editing takes a little longer than other times because I get rid of some of the nonsense stuff where people that aren't watching the show would be like, I don't understand what the hell's going on. So sometimes I have to get rid of some of that stuff. So sometimes it's a little shorter, but yeah.
Tim says you cannot have red or blue LED underbody lights. They do the underbody lights.
Oh, yeah.
You can't do red or blue in Wyoming. I'm assuming because that conflicts with emergency services.
It's the police.
Yeah. That makes sense. See, limitations on the fun I can have with my electric car. Volt. I think the Volt, you can change the sound when you turn it on. The interior, like, startup sound. And I know I was in a Volt once, and it was like that classic, like the powering down, but it was the powering up sound of the Death Star. It was like, whoa, and it was like, I'm like, that's cool. It might not sound like my Datsun, but man, that is cool.
That's funny.
So, we didn't really bring a big topic to the show today, and we're already at an hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah, I think we went off enough tangents.
I love this show.
To call it good, yeah. So thanks to everybody in chat for hanging out.
Any big plans this weekend?
No, not that I can think of. I will probably go work in the shop. If I get inspired, I'll go work on my carts a little more. Yeah, nothing major. You?
I've got the Patron race tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Today is hopefully... I got the truck race tonight at 6 p.m. I got a Fanatec hopefully coming to the door. If the Fanatec comes to the door, I'm literally just going to go live and do an unboxing. That's my plan. So everybody knows. Anybody here knows. You might want to watch that. Subscribe. Because, yeah, at the minute it gets here, I'm going to go live, do an unboxing. And then I got to kind of do a set turnaround. And then I'm going to, if I have time, because I got a race tonight, I'm going to then install it on my main rig. That would be a second video that I'll do live today. Now, if I'm to the point where I don't think I can have it set up and running in time to run a race, that might have to be postponed until after the Patron. So I'm hoping it's all about the podium this weekend. And I'll be doing a bunch of live streams to do some first impression stuff. But trying to stay away from a review until I don't like doing fast reviews. So I'm willing to do some first impressions because it's such a significant product. But sure. I don't want to rush the review. So that's kind of what hopefully I'll be doing this weekend. It's all about that. Probably go out with the endurance team and practice Nordschleife, even though I cannot run the race. I want to get out on Project Cars and hit the leaderboard so I can throw down the gauntlet. So you guys might want to go out there and see what you can do there. And I might want to go try that VW. That sounds kind of fun too. So if I can make some time this weekend, I'm still in that let me drive as much as I can mode. So hopefully I'll be able to do that as well. So yeah, it should be a busy weekend. No time off. I literally am booked between now and Monday's pit stop.
Oh, Angel's got a quick question. It says, when it comes to audio, what part of the car do you want to be more pronounced, whether on headphones or surround sound? So when you're driving the car, what do you want to hear?
That's a good question. I remember someone earlier in the chat said, like a modern GT car, you hear the gear whine noise far more than the engine. And I think outside of like a Porsche 911, that's pretty much true what he said. like I've been talking about my dog, man, I like the sound of engines. I really like the sound of engines. I like the sound of carbureted engines. I like the sound of turbocharged engines. I like the sound of supercharged engines. So to me, it's really the revs that I like hearing. When a sim does a really good job of combining the engine and transmission sound, I find that I am best at apex speeds, judging the apex speed. So as usable tool, for example, last night in the Solstice, that car did a great
The Solstice
job.
emits the sound of your soul dying when you drive that car. Sorry.
Oh, the car is the worst 3-4 shift in the history of racing. Like it shifts all the gears fine, but 3 to 4, it's just like, So, but downshifting into the corner, the combination of the gearbox and engine combined let you know exactly the speed you were at mid corner. And it was like one of the reasons I think I was fairly quick was I really had it nailed. Like by the audio was helping me get corner speed and just get it like under braking just right down to that speed. And I think that was as much the tranny as the engine noise. So yeah, I mean, that's the part. I mean, I will say that I cheat and I turn up tire screech because it's the first indication you get of something going wrong. So even though it's not my favorite sound per se, it's something I do cheat with, and I often will turn up my tire screech sound. So that's my answer to your question. I hope I answered it correctly.
I'm going to be contrarian here. I have a hard time with tire sounds, so I turn them down.
Oh, wow.
Because I find it actually limits me, because the tire sound doesn't often match what the car's actually doing. And I found when I had the tire sound up, typically, I was not driving the car hard enough, because racing in the real world, I don't pay attention to that as much.
Right.
You hear basically when you feel the car is going through the corner well, you tune it out.
Right.
If there is any. So the only time it becomes apparent is when you've screwed up. So I equate tire sound with me making a huge mistake. And I find that often tire sound in a sim starts to come in not at the point of you making a mistake, just at the point where you're starting to push the tire to the limit. You're not even to the limit yet.
Right.
So I turned the tire sound down, and that actually helped me a lot.
Okay.
Because it was actually slowing me down. I would hear the tire sound and I'm going too fast. I'm exceeding. My brain told me I was exceeding the grip level.
Right. It was a warning sound
that
to
was
you.
my past. Yeah, because that's my past experience.
Right.
And so now I can kind of tune it out. So I don't need to turn it down as much anymore. But I remember that I realized that was part of my issue, was I had to actually turn the tire sounds down because it was actually hurt. It was actually slowing me down.
That is interesting. Well, there you go. See, different strokes for different folks.
It messed with me, but I always, nothing like having the nice sound of an engine and knowing that I don't have to look at the tack when to shift.
Right. See, that's the thing. Like, somebody actually asked me what speed or tack I was at for something, and it was like, I don't know. I go by sound, 100% by sound. I have no clue what my RPM is. And I guess on pit lane, maybe at times, like on cars without a limiter, maybe I would know the RPM. Other than that moment, I am clueless as the RPM. If in fact, it was somebody. We were talking about short shifting to skip that weird 3-4 shift, and I noticed that if I shifted early, it was shifting better, and it was hitting the bog of the soulless. But it
the slowest.
But it was giving it the shift quicker and sounded better. And they asked what RPM I was shifting. I was like, I have no idea. I have no clue what RPM I'm shifting at.
The only time I ever really pay attention to that is if there is a difference in speed, but I can't really tell a difference in engine RPM sound.
Right.
So then I will notice at what point, I'm on at the shift light, or I don't
Right.
look at RPM number typically, but maybe like at the shift light or whatever.
Well, like in the Mercedes AMG GT3 in iRacing, you need to short shift that car. And I want to rev it out because it sounds
Feels
beautiful.
Good. Yes, it feels good. Like you're like, wah!
And so I've had to adjust to using the third yellow light as my indicator. And it's like I have to ignore the sound because I will go back to me, which is rev it to the max.
Yes.
And I have to go purely, I have to literally keep one eye on that little light and just always be doing, and it's so much earlier than I want to shift. Like I literally do have to watch it. But even then I still have no idea what RPM that is. So, all right. I hope we answered that.
There we go.
Anything else? Anything else on your mind?
I think we're good.
All right. Well, beyond that,
episode 18
in the books. Get out there, do some racing, everybody. It's Friday. Come out, race with us tonight. We'll do a practice race in the trucks. Just come out. It's really, you need to be part of that league. Oh, I'll just tell. No, I can't tell everybody the password. I use that password everywhere. If you want to be part of the league, be sure to email me, Shaun, SHAUN, at thesimpit.com. Subscribe or join the league on iRacing, but I'll get you the password tonight if you want to join us. Chicagoland, 4:40 p.m. Pacific time is when the practice will begin. Qualifying at 6, race at 6:10. And
how long is the race?
40 laps, I believe.
Okay.
Or is it 60 laps? I think it's 60 laps. I'm sorry, 60.
Okay.
We're doing 50% more than they do in the fixed C-Class truck series. So I was like, okay,
gotcha.
Whatever they do, we'll do more because we're
all right.
Better.
Whoa.
So anyway, but I'm always telling you guys, get out there, do some racing, and that's going to do it for this one. Thank you, Billy. It's been a great show.
Thank you.
You have a good weekend. That's going to do it for this edition, number 18 of Beyond the Sim. I'm Shaun Cole. That's Billy Strange, and we will see you on the track.
See ya.